Let me break it down to you. And this is going to be one of the realest statements you're going to ever hear. So you can have the best content in the world, interview the biggest names. Man, you can sit around and drop nothing but gems all the time and still have a podcast that nobody remembers. Now, why is that? It can't be the guests. It can't be your content. So what is it? You're sitting here dropping major gems. So what's the major problem? I know what it is. You don't have a brand. You do not have something noticeable. And when you say brand, and a lot of people are going to get mad at this particular mantra right here. I'm going to give you two scenarios. Actually, I'm going to give you three real quick. You got the LBJ brand, which is LeBron James. You have the Tom Brady, the TB12 brand. And then you have the Deion Sanders. Now, each one of these cats in this particular era, because if I throw another one in here, you got to talk MJ. All right. But when you throw all of these names into a pot and you mix it up, each one of them are known for certain things. They all have one thing in common. They're winners. But your podcast has no brand. So you can't even be categorized over here. So that's why your podcast is not getting the notoriety that you think it deserves. Now, when I'm talking brand, I'm not talking about no custom logos, a little cute logo, the little cute logo your daughter has or your son has or your wife has for her business that she puts on the top of her letterheads with the Canva graphics, or you hire a little graphic designer. I'm talking about making people feel something every time they see your name, whether it's hatred, whether they loving it. Like right now, when you talk brand, of course, one of the biggest brands is LeBron James. There's no doubt about that. There's no arguing that. One of the most up-and-coming brand names that when you mentioned her lately has been Shedeur Sanders. And for those who really, really, really don't understand what a brand name is, and a lot of people definitely going to get mad about this one, but I'm at that age. It's grown man business. I'm at that age where what I say and how you feel about me doesn't even matter. But when you're talking a brand outside of those two names that I just had mentioned, we got to talk Caitlin Clark. She comes into the league and she does her thing. This is what we're talking about when we're talking brands. You say these names and you know exactly either you like them or you dislike them. They are recognizable. And that's what you need to be able to do with your podcast. You need to make your podcast recognizable. You need to be that voice that stands out in any crowd. You want them to be like, there's that guy, or there's that young lady. See, in 2026, branding your podcast isn't optional anymore. Everywhere you go, you should have something that shows exactly who you are. You should carry yourself with a certain stigmatism that will say, I get it. I like who he is. One of the best lines I've ever heard from a lyricist that come out was by my guy, Top 5 Dead or Alive. People say he's cocky, but he's confident. Now, when you say that he's the best, that's a compliment. That's how you should feel about your brand. Nobody can tell you how your business is supposed to go, but nobody can tell you how to be confident enough to rock out with your podcast. Podcasting is a business. You're building an empire. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to do that with your podcast moving forward into 2020.
Welcome to Podcast for Profit, the show where podcasters become CEOs. I'm your host, Tony Porter, and every week I'm giving you the strategy, systems, and game you need to grow your audience, monetize your message, and build a 7-figure podcast business. No fluff, no cap, just real results. Let's get into it.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Holidays is over. Well, Thanksgiving's over. Christmas is around the corner. But I want to welcome you back to the Podcast for Profits, man. I'm welcoming you back to the show where we turn conversations into currency. Now, I'm your host, Mr. Anthony Porter. And if you're new here, let me tell you what we do. We don't just talk about podcasting. We talk about using your podcast as a business asset, a client magnet, a revenue generator, and your legacy builder. All wrapped up with that nice little pretty bow that you're about to get, that Christmas gift that you've been asked to Santa for a long time, right? Today, we're going to break down something that most people overlook. And then they forget when they overlook certain aspects of their business, their podcast, they forget until it's too late. See, branding your podcast in 2026 is what we're going to talk about, all right? We're going to talk about this. And listen, this ain't about being trendy, man. This is about being unforgettable. Now, earlier we talked about certain aspects in life, certain sports figures. Now, I could throw some other names out there like Steph Curry. That's a brand. Denzel Washington. That name alone is a brand. Al Pacino, brand. Matthew McConaughey, brand. You say this right now, my favorite right now is Billy Bob Thornton, man. Shout out to Billy Bob Thornton over with the Landman episodes. Brand. You say Billy Bob, you know that Billy Bob is the king of don't give a F's. Bad Santa 2, now Landman. Billy Bob is killing it. That's a brand. His name is his brand. All right. Of course, you don't want to be unforgettable, but it's also about standing out in spaces where there's literally millions of podcasts, but only a handful that people actually care about. Did you hear what I said? You want to stand out literally in front of millions, but be in that 1% that only most people care about. Now, here's what you're going to walk away with today. Because we're going to get into this. We got to. I got to, man. I got to give it to you. Because there are so many people out here who need a podcast. And why do I say that? I think every business needs a podcast. I truly do. When I first heard that statement made by Mr. Davis Shands from the Social Proof Network, I was like, this game is oversaturated, but I'm doing my podcast. I'm going to try to do mine a little different. I try to come up with catchy names. I try to come up with different ways to get into this thing. But in reality, I needed a name that was going to be something that's going to stand out. See, over at Podcast for Profits, I turn conversations into currency. We're showing you how to do that. So here's what you're going to walk away with. You're going to walk away today with how to define your podcast brand identity. Sharp people feel it before they even press play. You want them to want to listen to your podcast. Wait for that episode to drop. You're going to find out the 5 elements every brand podcast needs to dominate moving forward in 2026. You're going to find out why your voice, your story, and your message are your brand. You're going to find out how to package your content so it cuts through the noise on every single platform. And then the one thing 99% of podcasters forget that kills their growth. This is what you're going to find out. So if you're trying to build something real with your podcast, something that pays you, something that positions you, something that sets you apart, this is the blueprint for you. Now, the crazy part about this blueprint is, for podcasting, I studied one of the greatest lyricists of this generation, of my generation. And when I realized what he was saying, every album was the blueprint of something that has happened and something he was looking forward to. And that's Jay-Z. This is my culture. You need to be able to have it in your culture. I can't sit around and tell you how an outdoorsman does outdoorsy things. I know it's not a word, but they do outdoor things. I don't do that. I can't tell you how a mechanic fixes a vehicle. I don't do that. They got a blueprint. I got a blueprint to tell you and show you and walk you through and give you the game on how podcasters should start a business using podcasts. My 7-figure business is Podcast for Profits. It's the blueprint from the block to the boardroom. So what I want to do with you is I want to give it to you. So let's go. Let's quit wasting time and let's go. All right. So when you get into these things, man, we talk about pillars. All right. In pillar number 1, we're gonna talk about this because your brand starts with your promise. So when someone sees your podcast, do they know exactly what they're about to get into, or do they have to guess? Because here's the thing. See, people don't subscribe to podcasts anymore just because. All right. They subscribe when they know you've got something for them. They subscribe when your brand makes a promise they can't ignore. Come on now. That's why every single podcast for profit starts with the same line. We turn conversations into currency. That's not just a tagline. That's my promise. It tells you who I am. It tells you what I do and what you're going to get every time you tune in. We're not going to play around with that. See, you have to understand something. See, when I first started podcasting, I didn't have no clarity. I was all over the place. One week I was talking about motivation. The next week I was talking about interviewing random guests. The week after that, I was ranting about something on social media. And you know what happened? I had no growth, no engagement, no clients. Funny thing is, I had people who would come in there and they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? I'd be like, So you have to listen, and you know how you position yourself to try to explain something? They wasn't hearing that, man. My homeboys was like, boy, you everywhere. And once I understood that, I was like, okay. I was putting in work, but my brain was so damn confusing. Hell, I was confused. The people were confused, and they didn't want to convert. They didn't want to listen. I didn't have the downloads I needed. I didn't have the people returning. See, confused people don't share. So nobody was sharing my work. I'm thinking I'm putting out the best content. Nobody was sharing my work. And confused people don't scroll. So you have to have a brand consistency across every platform that you're working with. So what I have to do, after talking to some of my homeboys, I sat down and I asked myself, what do I actually do? What transformation do I create? What's one thing people should expect every time they see my name? When you see that podcast for profits, you are going to understand we're giving out free strategic planning. We're turning conversations into currency. No fluff, no BS, no gimmicks, none of that. That is the power of my brand promise. So with that being said, here's what you got to do this. You have to do this. It's a must that you do this. This is your first action step that you need to take. Write down your podcast promise in one sentence, not a paragraph, one sentence, and see if it answers 3 questions. Who's this for? What do they get? And why does it matter? If you can't answer them 3 questions, your brand isn't clear yet. And if your brand isn't clear, your audience is already lost. All right? So you got to get dialed in. You have to get dialed in. That mind frame has to be set for you to understand. This is the first part, and you can't skip that. You want to get the right people into your world. You want to build a podcast profiting machine. You want to help generate leads that lead back to your business so you can go from those inconsistent 5-figure months to 6 to 7 figures each month. You got to get locked in. You got to know who you're talking to, and you got to have that one sentence promise. So then it moves us on to pillar number 2. And pillar number 2 states just like this. There's 5 elements, 5 of a branded podcast. And moving forward in 2026, we need to talk about those 5 particular elements. If you're missing even one of these elements, you're going to lose or be leaving a ton of money sitting around in the cookie jar, in the Jiffy pot, in the Crown Royal bag. For those who don't know, now you know. So we don't want to leave no bread on the table. We want to make sure we get to that point. So element number 1 is your signature sound, your music intro. See, I was getting sounds from other areas, but what I forgot is back in the day, I was generating my own music. I was selling beats online. So my intro music, my outro music, my transitions, the way my voice sounds, this is how you need to be. Your intro music, your transition, your outro music, your voice needs to sound exactly the same. And what I mean by exactly the same is this is your brand. So when people are not able to watch a YouTube video and they hear your voice, they'll be like, oh, that's Jackson. You got to be able to bring the energy. People should be able to recognize your podcast in 3 seconds. Think about this. You know Joe Rogan's intro. You know the Breakfast Club's intro. My intro's the same. I'm going to give it to you the exact same. I'm going to give you a curiosity question asked or a curiosity fact, and then the intro kicks in. And it's the greatest showman, man. Again, Jada said, it's not being cocky, it's confident. So when you tell me I'm the best, that's the compliment. All right? And that's how you got to look at this, man. You have to look at it like nobody's better than you. But you have to be able to make sure everybody understands who you are, what you do it for, and why they should listen to you. Now, number 2, the second element is your visual identity. This is going to be everywhere. This is everywhere. Your cover art, your thumbnails, your Instagram post, your banner, all of this, it needs to be the same brand. Now, in 2026, people are consuming content everywhere. So you can take one long form piece of content and place it in every platform that you possibly could think of. But your branding needs to be the same. You can't put an Instagram post up and your brand colors on Instagram are green, pink, and yellow. And then over here on your podcast, it's red, gray, and black. No. If your main colors on your podcast is red, gray, and black, guess what? It needs to be the same way on Facebook. It needs to be the same way on Instagram. It needs to be the same way, no matter what. TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, X, Threads, you name it, it's there. It needs to be the same for Apple Podcasts. It needs to be the same for Spotify. It needs to be the same all across the board. And once people start seeing it, once people start recognizing it, people say, oh, that's the trust brand. I like that. Once they recognize that, your authority has been built, they're going to stay with you. Your trust builds revenue, and that's how you start getting this money. All right. Number three, the third element is the repeatable framework. See, every episode doesn't have to be the same, but the structure should be predictable. Again, in the beginning, you're going to get the curiosity hook, you're going to get my intro, you're going to get my welcome, and then you're going to get the flow of the podcast. Every episode doesn't have to be the same again, but what you need to have is you need to have that magnetic messaging for every episode. People know what they're getting when they're listening to your podcast, and that's how you have to think. They know I'm going to open up with a hook, tell a little story, teach a little something particular, and then give them the clear next step. You have to be able to do that. That's what magnetic messaging is about. Any podcast you listen to today has the magnetic messaging put in place. You have to be able to have that magnetic messaging system framework put in place. The fourth element, you have to have a unique voice. And it's not the sound of your voice, your perspective, your take, your story, your angle. 2026, moving forward, podcasts all over the world. Some people say, man, podcasts are so saturated. No, they're not. If your message is correct and your voice is unique and you are able to reach your culture raw, uncut, this is the way that you stand out, not the way that I stand out. This is how you stand out. See, I can't come on here and talk to you like, hey, how you doing? I'm dizzy. That's not me. I'm going to talk to you like I grew up from the block and I made it to the boardroom. Even after that, I'm still, listen to what I'm saying. Still 10 boots and sweatsuits, closing deals. That's me. That's my voice. That's when I speak like, hey, how you doing? What's good? What's popping? I learned a long time ago from some folk that I was working around coaching youth sports. They told me, we wear suits. You be yourself. Me being myself got me into golf scrambles with folk that was doing $1 million deals on the golf course. I'm riding around with this big exec from a TV station because the guys that I work with, they used to work for the marketing department in the TV station. So when I'm coaching, hey man, come as you are. And then it got to the point where they wouldn't even reach out no more. That executive would hit me up. Hey, we having a golf scramble this weekend. All right, cool. But no, yes, sir. It was, I bet. I'm there. I get to the scramble, park my whip, get out. He's pulling up on the golf cart. He's got 2 coolers on the back. Now, anybody ever been to a golf scramble? No, you're going to drink. I don't drink like that. He do. That executive stayed lit. Had a ball. Oh, we're running short on ice. Oh, let's go to the golf. No, let's drive down the road and we can run right into the store and get that. But they accepted me because I was who I was. I didn't try to be nobody I wasn't. I'll never forget one day they said, we having a meeting and it was about some investments going into the youth sports thing, the team, the whole cluster. And so they had called me over, but some other people was around and they was like, Tony, B want to holler at you. I said, okay. I said, when we talking? We're going to get together tomorrow afternoon. All right, cool. We didn't have practice this particular day. I said, bet. So one person heard it said, yeah, I could put on my purple suit. Me being me, I said, what you doing that for? I can't go to the meeting. Never said you couldn't go, but what you wearing a suit for? That ain't what you do. They're going to respect you more if you come as who you are. Dude put on a suit, they never talked to him. Everybody in that meeting was like, hey, Tony, how you doing? Man, we had a good time this weekend at the scramble. I did too. Now that executive has moved on. He started another business and he still reaches out. So his unique voice and my unique voice was one and the same. Your unique voice needs to be able to open those doors without changing exactly who you are. And that leads us into the fifth element. No, we're not talking Bruce and Chris Tucker. We're talking a clear path forward. See, every episode should lead somewhere. Not just thanks for listening and see you next time. No, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? How do I get deeper with you? That's what you want them to ask you. How can I work with you, Mr. Tony? How can I work with you, Mr. James? How can I work with you, Miss Jean? How? You should be able to have a clear path forward on what the next step, on how you're going to get them into your funnel, how you're going to get them into your high ticket programs, how you're going to get them into, how you're going to monetize your podcast. That's your brand action. So here's what you need to do. Audit your podcast right now against these 5 elements. Rate yourself from 1 to 10 on each one. Be honest with yourself. A lot of people are not honest with themselves. Now, if you go below a 7 on any one of them, focus on that particular step of your podcast. All right? You got to focus on it, man. You got to. Now, before we jump into pillar number 3, and in pillar number 3, we're going to talk about your story as your brand. Now, here's what I want to say to you. If by any chance you want to move forward, there will be a link in the description for you to grab the client generating podcast kit. This helps you get your clients. It'll walk you through. It's an interactive checklist to help you walk through turning your podcast into a client generating machine. In other words, turning yourself into a walking ATM. All right, y'all follow me? Cool. Now we rocking out. So let's talk about pillar number 3, because guess what pillar number 3 talks about? You guessed it. Your story is your brand. See, most people don't understand this, and most podcasters don't understand this. People don't connect with you because of your content. They connect with you because of your story. People buy off emotion. People listen to you off emotion. All right, man. There's a podcast I follow. It's called Music Is My Business. It's a gentleman by the name of Anthony Clint. He's so smooth. He's so laid back. He's so subtle. Most people would be like, he's kind of boring. No. Have to be able to understand this is how he is. This is how he produces his music. This is how he's built his brand. This is how that's his business. Now, for me, podcast for profit, profit's always been something that has always been on my mind. See, growing up in the west side of Louisville, shout out to the whole city, though. A lot of people think we just country, but we get money. And I've been through it. I've struggled. I've hustled. I've built businesses from nothing. I've failed. I've learned. I've coached and I've created on every level that you could possibly think of. And guess what? All of this shows up in what I do when I'm podcasting. See, that's what makes Podcast for Profit so different from each business podcast out there. See, I'm not just teaching strategies. It's not about the strategies. See, I'm giving you the strategies with the streets mixed in. It's like when you sit there and you watch somebody, especially these movies. Listen, the movies that I see on Tubi from the guys from Detroit, shout out to them cats, man. Shout out to Murder Payne and that whole clique that he's got. And the reason why I say shout out to them is because they killing the game on the independent circuit. All right? McGraw, I have 1 and 2. Listen, all of these cats, man, have come together and put together a brand. Murder's the face of the brand. But behind the scenes, hey, man, they got some dope content. They tell a story of where they're from. It's real life. They give you the perspective from the streets of Detroit. Some give you the spectrum from the streets of New York. Stuff like Paid in Full, Killer Season, The Streets is Watching, State Property. These are films that gave you the inside look of what was going on in New York. You got some films that you got cats from Buffalo, hey man, showing out. We can't skip the films that come in from Texas, California. We can't skip the films that come in from Atlanta and Miami, anywhere down south, Alabama, Mississippi. The South got something to say. 3 Stacks said that. At first, it was, the East Coast was doing a thizzle. Then the West popped in. But when the South had something to say, a lot of people wasn't really feeling it because everybody was so used to their story. The South had a story. You got to have a story, man. People buy off emotion. Think about this. ATL came out, told a story of young African Americans in Atlanta. I've watched that movie a gazillion times. Paid in Full, Wood Harris, gazillion times. Cameron playing the part of Alpo, State Property. The Streets is Watching, Killer Season. And then when you go to the West Coast, man, come on, man. We know what they do. We know how they get down. Shout out to the West. Q put it on with Friday. You've had Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood. But these are the ones that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about every one of them because I'm still playing catch up with a lot of movies that come from off the West Coast, man. So I don't want nobody to think that I'm slouching them for big names because I'm not. All right? I'm not. But the stories that they're telling is what I relate to. See, for most people, the story was Al Pacino and Scarface. The younger generation, I had this conversation the other day. They was talking about something called Shotters. Okay, so yeah, they was talking Shotters. I didn't watch it. Maybe when I find some time, we're going to watch it. But it's how you position yourself with your story, your brand story. 50 right now is telling stories from around him. He's getting it out there. So what you need to do is for your action defining moment here, write down 3 defining moments that have shaped who you are in life. Talk about who you are and what you teach. Then ask yourself this question. Are those stories showing up in the podcast? Because if they're not, you're not building a brand. You're just putting out content. So that's what you got to look at, man. So let's talk pillar number 4, how to package your brand across all platforms. This work is good. So let's talk about this. Most people don't understand your podcast can be one particular piece of content anywhere you want it to be, right? But in 2026, you got to be able to rebrand, repurpose, repost a lot of your content over all platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn, your website, your community, YouTube, TikTok. Now, if it doesn't feel cohesive on all those platforms, you're invisible. When I launched the Podcast for Profit network, I knew, trust me, I knew I couldn't just have a podcast. I needed a full ecosystem. So I branded the same colors, my voice, same messaging, the same promise. I put it everywhere. YouTube thumbnail, LinkedIn thumbnail, LinkedIn banner, YouTube banner, Facebook banner. It's everywhere. So knowing that you should have eyes on every piece of content, whether it's a short, whether it's a reel, whether it's a 3-minute video, whether it's a 30-minute video, whether it's a post. You should have eyes on the entire reel, the entire platform, repurpose that whole content. All right. Now here's an action step. Take your last podcast episode and repurpose it into 5 pieces of content. A YouTube short or Instagram reel that's about 60 seconds. All right. A LinkedIn post broken down into main talking points with lessons. If you got your email list, start promoting episodes with the link to the offer. A quote graphic. This is good for Facebook. This is good for Instagram posts. And then on Twitter and X, whichever one you want to call it, thread summarize your key takeaways, all right? Pillar number 5, the last pillar we're going to talk about today. The one thing 99% of podcasters forget is that mic drop moment. The one thing that separates branded podcasts from everyone else, it's not the logo, it's not the intro music, it's not even that content. It's how they make people feel. I remember the first time someone told me, yo, your podcast makes me feel like I could actually do this. That hit different. Man, I had somebody listen. It's crazy. It's crazy for me because I've been rocking this podcast, right? I had a preacher heavy off into the church, pulled me off to the side just the other day. And the words that came out of his mouth was so inspiring to me. He said, hey, man, Brother Porter. I said, yes, sir. How you doing today? And that's the only time I'm going to be respectful to my elders. I'm going to be respectful no matter what. That's the way I was brought up. Though I was running the streets, I knew how to switch it on and off. He said, man, I've been listening to your podcast. And quiet as it's kept. I don't want too many people to understand. I started my own just to talk to the church folk. He said, but that's because of you. And I kind of looked and I almost brought a tear to my eye because this guy don't talk. He don't say nothing. And I was like, hey, man, I appreciate that. He said, keep doing you, man. He said, I've even told a couple of the deacons in the church about it. And again, it hit different because that's when I realized I'm touching outside of where my thought process was when I first started. I have people who have shown me the business lifestyle reach out to me and say, hey, man, your content's good. It's different. So those compliments, whether 1 or 1,000, makes me keep going. They are listening to this Podcast for Profits project episode every single Monday at 6 a.m. because it makes them feel a certain way. It makes them want to listen. My podcast makes them motivated. It makes them feel seen. It makes them understood. It equips them to be ready. That's what a brand does. It creates an emotional experience. And when people feel something, they come back. Think about this. A lot of y'all don't understand. When you go shopping, if you have an outstanding experience in a department store, you're going back. You find a good sale. The salesperson is ready to connect with you. You go back looking for that person. You have a mechanic that works on your car to keep your car, your whip right. You go back to that person. Now, here's your final action point of the day. Ask yourself, you should be saying this to yourself. How do I want people to feel after they listen to my podcast? Write it down. And then I'm going to give you this one. Every action step, I need you to jump over. Go on and join it because it's a free community. All right. It's a free community. Podcast for Profits. All right. Join the free community. And every action step that you got, write it down and post it in the community. All right. Because you should be able to feel some type of way about somebody else feeling some type of way about your podcast. Now, if you don't feel some type of way and they not feeling you, there's no big deal. You don't quit. You don't give up. You adjust it. Make it content. You have to block out the noise and write without emotion. People have enough noise going on these days. It's too much going on in this world. I'm not picking political sides because right now I'm seeing a lot of folks struggle. Black or white, rich or poor. The rich think they not struggling, but they struggling. All right? So look, I gave you the blueprint, but here's the real. Knowing what you do now, can you do 2 different things? If you're serious about branding your podcast, I told you what you got to do. You got to get that lead magnet, that client generating blueprint for podcasts. The link is going to be in the description. And you need to join the community. That client generated blueprint, podcast, exactly what people thought it was when they first looked at it. Yeah, at first I was just sending the link out, but I said, no, we need to get a community together and get people inside this community. And when they get inside this community, you can bounce ideas off of each other. Don't y'all understand that's how business is done? So you got to have support. Podcast for Profits Network is what we're talking about. All right. Now, again, if you love what you just heard, do me a favor. Follow us on your favorite streaming platform. That means if you on Apple, go ahead and just keep following us so you'll know when it's coming up. Leave us a review. Screenshot this and tag me on Instagram. Tag me at I am Anthony Porter on IG or Podcast for Profits on Instagram. And remember, your podcast is not just a show. It's a brand. It's a business. It's a movement. And in 2026, the ones who's branded it the right way are going to win, man. Until next time, keep turning those conversations into currency. It's your man Anthony over here at Podcast for Profits. We out here. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Podcast for Profit. If you got value today, share this episode with a creator who's ready to level up. And make sure you hit follow so you never miss the moves we're making. If you're serious about turning your podcast into a business, tap the link in the show notes to join the Solo Empire Network and get the tools, coaching, and community you need. I'll see you in the next episode. Keep going, keep growing, and remember, your voice is your vehicle.